Welcome back, everybody, to Two Guys and a Stack of Comics. My name is Reed. Along with me, as always, is Mike, and we have three guys at a Stack of Comics today. Mike's son Jax is going to join us. We're going to break down the third episode of Daredevil, Born Again, Season 1, or as I like to refer to it, Daredevil Season 4. Um, we get the third episode. Very weird to wait a week for a Daredevil episode. I'm still waiting for like the Netflix binge to happen. I still don't know whether I hate or love the weekly release thing. I don't know. I guess it'll depend on how it turns out. But we just wanted to kind of break down where we think the show is going, what our overall thoughts were with episode 3, the massive cliffhanger that it ends with. So there will be spoilers for this for Daredevil episode 3. Anytime we do a review on these, we're probably going to spoil them. It's really hard to talk about how good the episodes are or not without spoilers. So, Mike, Jax, I'm going to kick it to you guys first before I go on this. What were your thoughts on the third episode of Daredevil? I know we were fans of the first two, but what did you think about the third one?
Jax, I'll let you start.
Okay. I thought it was a pretty good episode overall. Like obviously it's like, oh, there's no action, but like the part of the narrative that it set up, and the trial and all of that, I think was really nice to see and important for the story. I thought it was really well done and just like crushing the way they did that. Since apparently like in the comic this is based off of, Hector Ayala was found guilty during the trial. So we thought maybe like, I know people who read that comic might think like, oh, well, he was found innocent, so something might be different. So it seemed like it was going in a more positive direction before he got killed. And yeah, like the dude that killed him wearing the Punisher outfit.
Big surprise at the end, right?
Yeah.
I was very excited for the next episode because even though, like, as we'll probably get into, it's likely that it was probably a cop that actually did it. It's definitely setting things up to where it's very likely we might see Punisher next episode. And I'm really interested to see where that
Punisher
goes.
might have to set things straight, right, Jax?
Yeah. And
he kills enough people just on his own. He doesn't need the cops helping him out.
Yeah,
right?
it will be. I think the interesting thing of this episode with the Punisher angle, and then Mike will get your overall thoughts on it. I would tell you there's no way it's the Punisher that actually kills White Tiger at the end of this episode. Although Marvel does seem to hate him quite a bit now.
No.
My only thing is I don't think John Bernthal would come back for that. He seems to be very protective of the character, very well aware of how much the Punisher means to a lot of military types, and so I don't think he wants to do anything that would be kind of what the Marvel Comics line right now
Yeah.
is doing to the Punisher. So I don't think John Bernthal would have come back for it. It is a heck of a cliffhanger. I'll give it that. Like it, and
Oh my God.
it does show the wild card. What I do appreciate about it is the wild cardness of the Punisher and his influence in Daredevil's world as it was set up in the second season of that is this. And that's, I think it's kind of cool. This is the natural extension of that argument Matt had with both Punisher and with Karen about the Punisher's actions and what he does and all that. So I think that's an interesting thing. Mike, what did you think about the episode overall?
Oh my gosh. Okay, let me tell you. I'm a guy who likes comics to get a little wordy here and there, and I don't mind the filler issue if the writing is good and it moves the story along, which I will count this as like probably like would have been kind of like a filler issue. But I was totally engaged because of the cliffhanger that they left us on last week, which was, is how is Matt Murdock going to get away from, maiming those police officers, right? I thought, he was going to, go to jail or prison. We have yet to see the fallout for that. But instead, we go right into this trial, the impossible trial, right? Where he has to defend a guy that two corrupt cops, were setting up. And, anyway, all the cards are against Daredevil. All the cards are against Matt Murdock. And his partners are telling him, no way, don't take this case, Matt. And so there's this roller coaster ride that you're on, and then they got the key witness. They finally found him, and they got him, and and so he's going to testify. He's going to testify, and then he testifies, and he destroys the case. He says, I didn't see nothing. I was at home all night. And then you're crushed. You're like, he's going to lose. And Matt does not give up. He goes, we're going to go full bore on the vigilante thing. I'm going to out White Tiger, and I'm going to bring in all these corroborating witnesses of how you were a positive factor in the community. And it left you on pins and needles, like what was going to happen. And so kudos to the writers for that. I know it was more of a dialogue heavy kind of episode, but and I'm a tertiary Daredevil fan, so I don't know anything about the White Tiger storyline. I have no clue. I'm just, I know what happened, 5 years ago on Netflix. And I used to read Daredevil back in the 70s and maybe picked up a few issues here that I love Daredevil. He was one of my childhood favorite heroes. So that's all I know of Daredevil. So I'm an example of like the ignorant, regular community of people that watch the show. And I will tell you, it was a great show. It was very entertaining. I don't know how comic accurate, but it was a good show.
It's interesting in that I will say I liked it, and I think this shows why Daredevil's a great character, and why I think Daredevil's perfect for TV. How many legal procedural shows do we have that are just trials? And you can do that with Daredevil, and it's accurate to the character, and it makes a great television episode. And with the superhero twist, as it should be in the world of Marvel and with Daredevil, and I thought they executed that really, really well. My only disappointment for the episode is after that like bone crushing fight at the end where he like breaks a guy's arm through his skin and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah,
that Matt's just walking around the courthouse like everything's fine, and the cops,
I know,
like that fight was so brutal to have it just play no effect other than Daredevil's like crap talking the guy in the restroom at the beginning. I felt like that wasn't the most. It almost feels like maybe that was a scene that was added in reshoots or something like that. If we want a cool little fight scene here or something,
or you could have panned out to the gallery, and you could have seen like one of them with a
sling on or something like that.
Yeah, and the other guy with an eye patch on, like. So, but they didn't do that. So.
And that's definitely a thing that they'll have to really address for it to make sense. Because obviously, if you attack two police officers, they're going to try and make a story against you. But I think since White Tiger was already found innocent, if there was a hypothetical episode where there was a case against Matt, like if the cops tried to do a case against him, I forgot. I don't think it was was it the exact same two cops that were beating up the.
I think I don't know if it was the exact same two.
No, because one of those guys in the subway died.
One's dead. I think the other is the guy who got kidnapped. So we don't. The guy who got his arm snapped, and we never saw him again. What I will say for the show overall, it's doing some interesting things. And as a Daredevil fan who reads the comic books and stuff, I think they're blending three kind of runs almost. There's a lot of Brian Michael Bendis. That's the White Tiger trial kind of thing. You have Chip Zdarsky's run with Mayor Fisk and kind of the anti-vigilante stuff. A little bit of Brubaker with the White Tiger niece being mentioned and stuff like that. And then you got Mark Waid's with Kristen McDuffie. You have a little bit of Frank Miller with Heather Glenn. There's a lot of stuff that they're mixing in, especially Foggy's death kind of ties to Brubaker and stuff. So there's a lot of ways they could go with it. I will say what I did like is, as someone who read the comic book with the trial and all that, where he loses and White Tiger is shot trying to escape, I did appreciate the twist. I think one thing is it still felt enough close to the comic books, but for me sitting at home, it was still a bit of a surprise where I'm not getting a panel by panel recreation. And so I did appreciate that because it was executed well. I think overall, what I liked out of this episode is I kind of know where we're going now. I think the first two episodes kind of felt a bit too much setup-y, and I still liked them. This, I think the clear thing they're setting up is it's a story of two men who are struggling against their nature. It is how long can Matt contain being Daredevil, and how long can Fisk contain being Kingpin. And that's we see two guys who are trying to show that they can take a different path in life, and inevitably, because it's comic books and who these guys are, they're going to clash as who they are. And I think that's that's classic storytelling of people trying, can a tiger change its stripes kind of thing, right? And trying to do that. And so I think there's some interesting points to be made with that. I think the other part that will be interesting, the corrupt cop angle with the Punisher logos and stuff like that, I think that's the one area of this show I think it would have been far more interesting to go the route that like Zdarsky did, where Kingpin had an anti-vigilante force that was ex-supervillains. And so you had like Bullseye as a government agent hunting down superheroes and stuff like that. The cops as Punisher, I didn't like the storyline where they had Frank Castle show up and like lecture the cops using his skull logo, even though I agree cops shouldn't really idolize the Punisher. I think it's completely different for military versus cops. But I do think that is where I want to see Punisher. I just that storyline to me, I don't know how they're going to, because they set this weird thing where like Fisk and the cops don't get along, but then you've got this vigil. There's just too. I think it might be too many plot threads that they're going with, and I think it could have been cleaner if you would have had like Fisk's Thunderbolts task force like he had in the comic books, where he's got Bullseye or whoever, and if you have someone like Bullseye kill White Tiger at the end or something like that because he's freed by Fisk, that might be more interesting than the Punisher storyline, even though I'm excited to see Bernthal and everything they have. But overall, I thought really great episode of television. I mean, I think it's the versatility of Dare. This is where Daredevil, I think, could run for 10 seasons. How many legal procedural things do we
Yeah.
have? How many kind of vigilante shows do we have? You kind of have two different genres that we make 50 television shows a year out of. And I think they could easily kind of go with it. Overall, did this raise for you guys? Did this raise your anticipation for what's left, or lower it, or how you feeling after this one?
I think I'm feeling. I think it might have raised my expectations a little bit, but I think relatively it's still the same, maintaining generally the same quality that the first two episodes had.
Mhm.
And yeah, like you said, I kind of know what we can expect generally from the rest of the show now, especially after this episode, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
And did it inspire Jackson to buy a comic? Show the comic you bought.
But yeah, so I went to that first. I know this isn't necessarily the best place to start, not the greatest Daredevil story ever, but it's what they had.
It's at least the number one. It's at least
Yeah, at least it's number one, and it's the ultimate continuity, so you don't have to know.
I'll have to open up the I'm gonna have to open up the Daredevil archive and let you borrow some and read. I don't know if I don't know if I can let Ultimate Daredevil be your only exposure to the character.
Yeah.
To the comic book market.
I'm planning on going and picking up that Ronnie suggested, like the Frank Miller one.
Man Without Fear. Yeah, that's great.
At Nelco. At Nelco Comics in San Antonio. And if guys that live in San Antonio that watch our show, if you haven't been to Nelco, you got to go check out that.
Great store. No, I think it will be interesting to see where all of this goes. I do think one thing that I wanted to make sure, because I watch Daredevil is the one show where I will dive in nerd content wise. I normally don't watch reviews or spoilers. This because it's Daredevil. The same anything from a Batman movie comes out, I kind of dive in and just see. I've seen a lot of people talking about how it's boring, how it's not as good. And one thing I'll say, I think there is some revisionist history of the Netflix show. The Netflix show had episodes like this where there was an action. And some of those episodes were really, really good. I think the versatility of Daredevil as a character is his world, and his world is a legal. And what I like is it's not lip service to the fact that Matt's a lawyer. One of the things I hate in comic book movies is when we have them have a profession, and that profession is largely just a made up thing so you can pretend they do. It's kind of like Arrow. Like Oliver Queen's supposed to be an industrialist, and like his job really never conflicts with what he's doing after like the second season.
That's impossible, right?
Barry is a CSI, and like you'd never know he actually has a job.
When he did, he was always late.
Yeah, always late or
he would have been
something.
fired.
I love the Peter Parker angle of things with characters, where I love the Raimi movies for the effort they always put of Peter getting in trouble with his job and Peter would getting in trouble with school. And that is what we love about superheroes. And that's where I do feel television might end up being the best medium for superheroes, is you can really dive into their profession and their job and who they are. And I think the coolest thing that Daredevil still has, and I miss this out of the comic books, is I love the secret identity piece. I love having the girlfriend who doesn't know, and he's got to hide that, and he's got to have that cordoned off, and he's got to contain the Daredevil part, and he's got to balance his lawyer job. That is the stories that get us invested for 60 something years to read these characters and come back over and over again. And I think the movies, I think especially the MCU, simplify it too much. Tony Stark was done with a secret identity in the end credits of the first movie. And really there was very little fallout to that ever, except for in Iron Man 3 with that one scene. Captain America, no civilian life, nothing. We never really saw Steve Rogers' life. We just saw Captain America. That's where I think Spider-Man always connects so well, is you have the stakes of his high school and MJ and Ned and all that in the movies. And I think that's where Daredevil could really balance well with this, is if they can keep that, you're just as invested in Matt Murdock as you are in Daredevil. And I think that's a really smart move for them to dive into that.
I really have to concur with that because comic books are this serialized storyline that you try and fit into a 2 hour movie or 2.5 hour movie. You just can't get the depth. And these long running shows that go on for 13, 26, 3, 4, 5 years, you get these offshoot episodes where you get to really do some character and world building. And I, as a reader, enjoy that, and I like to see it on TV. So I don't mind it being episodic at all.
Yeah. No,
what do you guys think?
I think it continues to be a good show. There is one caveat I'm going to put on this. If episode 4 does what a lot of streaming shows have done lately, where we leave a cliffhanger and then the next episode is isolated on something completely unrelated to the cliffhanger for the full episode, I'm going to be ticked. They have done that way too many times lately, where huge cliffhanger and then the next episode's like an origin episode for like Kristen McDuffie or something like that. Like if the next episode has nothing to do, I'm going to be mad, especially because my biggest complaint with Disney Plus on this, we only get 9 episodes. Daredevil is a 13 episode show. It's only 9. And I noticed on this one, I think this one was only 35 minutes long. So like Daredevil, all the Netflix episodes were like an hour. These are 30 to 40 minutes. We're only getting 9 of them. And I think that's the only worry I have for this season is Matt's not in the costume yet. And we're a third of the way through the season already. And the episodes are increasingly short. I'm like, okay, like I hope they have it. Maybe the plan is this is a multi-season arc,
and
they're not going to wrap it up. But
I'd rather it be short and good than long and bad.
I did
the
hear
CW TV shows do show the the problem with 20 something episodes. Yeah,
I did hear that this is sort of supposed to be like a one half of like the full like season 2 is going to continue and wrap up the story and be sort of like a second half to it. And
if they do that, I think that's smart. I don't think you can possibly wrap up everything in this. And I will say, as much as I don't mind the new characters, I do wonder why this Cherry character was on there. I think they could have picked the detective he's friends with. I think you could have easily done Cole North from the comics recently, or you could have done Brett from the TV show. It's a weird character. I'm like, why is he here? Like, why was this character added to the show when he has nothing to do with the canon? But we'll see. I think there's a lot of cool through lines, and even like I think the Fisk and Vanessa stuff. I've seen people be like, "Oh, I don't like that they're not getting along." Fisk and Vanessa don't really love each other as much as they did in the show and the comic books. So a lot of that is sticking to that as well, where there's a lot of strife and things. And I think eventually Matt's girlfriend being the therapist for the Kingpin has got to be something that's. And again, that's what I do like a lot of this is if you're gonna have a TV show with the width and that depth to kind of go through all these different little storylines, you need to explore them. And I think if they're setting that up well the same way the comics do, where there's little things that don't pay off for 10, 15, 20 issues, but it's there. And so I think that's kind of cool. But we'll see. Hopefully we see the Punisher next week. That's what I am hoping for after that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But any closing thoughts from you guys before we wrap this one up?
All I can say is looking forward to the rest of the show. I know I've heard from one early reviewer that Punisher is not in the show a whole lot, so it's probably like one episode where he's heavily involved. I hope that's going to be the one we see next week. But yeah, really excited to see where this goes. Excited to see Muse in action. Looked pretty cool in the trailer. So
yeah, we know he's coming too.
But yeah.
No, it'll be interesting. We shall certainly see. I do hope we get Karen back sooner rather than later as well. I think some of the chemistry between Matt, Karen, and Foggy that made the show is missing from it. But overall, I thought it was a really good episode of television. But let us know, what do you guys think below? What did you think?
And what do you guys think? Is Foggy coming back this season? Is he really dead? Put it in the comments below.
Yeah, could be a comic bluff like they did with Brubaker's run. We shall certainly see. As always, folks, let us know what you think down below. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you, and we'll catch you in our next video.
Thanks, everybody.